Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Dimes College Football Podcast. Hosting tonight, myself, Neville Triplet at NG Triplet, and we have Coach Tuck, and I will get his tag up there at Tuck_Coach. If you want to hit him up on X, formerly known as Twitter, I am at NG Triplet, and we've got, if you want to get to our page, at Mental Dimes. And we also have one specific to college football. If I can find that, it is at Mental Dimes CFB. And we also have a Facebook page and hopefully more to come. So please hit us up on all the socials and we will get started. We will get to it right away. Coach, how's your season been going? I know you're a big Michigan guy up there. I know there's a lot of stuff going on up there. We'll get to that. But how's the college football season been going on for you?
It's been going great. Just having a lot of time just to try to piecemeal together a game here, a game there. And I think this is an interesting season. You know, we're week 11 or 12 is this week?
We finished 11. We're entering week 12 with these Wednesday night, Thursday night games coming up, but we're completing week 11.
We got 5 undefeated teams. We've got intrigue about who's going to make the CFP. Obviously, you mentioned Michigan, and is Michigan going to even be eligible even if they do win it all? I mean, win everything out and win out. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting. There's a lot more stories than I felt like there were last year. A lot of drama.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a ton to talk about, and you could do probably a whole show on any one of those topics. But we're going to try to cover a bunch of things, and please interact with us anytime you can, or hit us up on these socials if you're not watching us live. All right, so I thought we would start with the top 25, and then the CFP, the College Football Playoff rankings, and really they're very similar. Until you get kind of towards the bottom, but I'll just run through the top 5 and it's the same for AP and coaches, and then it'll be slightly different for CFP. But I kind of want to get your thoughts. Do you think they got the top 5 right? Anybody else you'd like to see? So it goes for both AP and coaches: Georgia Bulldogs number 1, Michigan Wolverines number 2, Ohio State Buckeyes 3, Florida State Seminoles 4, and then the Washington Huskies at 5. I'll just round out a few more since they're the same. Oregon at 6, Texas at 7, Bama at 8, Louisville at 9, Oregon State at 10. You have any issues, or you think they get it right as far as that order, at least in the top 5, maybe top 10?
Personal thoughts. I know I'm not going to make the Michigan fans happy, but I don't think Michigan should be number 2. Penn State is their only real win. I get, UNLV is starting to. Is that sad that I'm saying UNLV is starting to look like a quality win? But that's
in 1990s basketball, that would be a heck of a win.
Oh, it's a great win back then. But I mean, with that being their next best win, and how good is Penn State? Ohio State at least has the Notre Dame win.
Right.
On that. So I think Ohio State, do I think Ohio State's better? I don't know, but I think they have the better resume so far. So I would probably move Michigan down to 4.
4, okay.
I think Florida State has a better resume right now than they do. They don't, maybe not. No, the LSU's a good win. There's some quality wins in the ACC. So I'm not sold on Washington. But I don't know. You're nitpicking right now.
Sure. The good news is, a lot of this will work itself out. There's going to be a monster game at some point, Michigan, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of this will take care of itself. Let me ask you about a team here. And I know they've got 1 loss, and I'm not saying that they need to move up. They're probably right where they need to be. But just from who's playing the best right now, tell me a little bit of what your thoughts are. Oregon Ducks, man, they seem to really be playing well. And again, I don't think we have to move them, but they're a dangerous team, I think.
I mean, I watched that. I got some eyes on the Oregon-Washington game, and I thought Oregon dropped the ball on that one. I thought they could have won that. I know they're everybody's darling right now. Bo Nix all of a sudden for president, and so I think they're dangerous. I think if they run the table and they beat Washington in the the Pac-12, the the Pac-12 final
Yeah.
championship, I think they go to the playoffs. I think if they don't beat Washington, obviously, then they're out. I mean, they're
Yeah,
in
those
a
two
bad.
losses. I
They're
agree.
win in advance. Survive in advance. But I agree. I think they're better than Washington, even though they have the one loss.
Okay. So let me ask you about teams 7 through 10. Just tell me, is there anybody that could run the table here and then get in? So you've got Texas, obviously Bama, then Louisville, Oregon State. Could any of them, if Bama, for example, wins the SEC, can they force their way into the college football playoff?
And I know we want to talk a lot about the CFP. Could I see a world where Bama and Georgia both get in? Yes. I 100%. Bama beats them in the SEC championship. I think they're both in. And I think Bama is you talk about Oregon peaking. I think Bama is peaking. Jalen Milroe is all of a sudden starting to look like, I think he was a 5-star prospect. So he's starting to look like a 5-star prospect and not like the 1-star that he looked like the first couple weeks.
Right. He did look out of sorts for sure.
So I think Bama can make a run. I think Texas, I think their whole season kind of revolves around Quinn Ewers. How does he look? If he's fine, I don't know what's going on in Sark's mind. I mean, I kind of do, but I was shocked that when Ewers went down, they didn't put in Arch Manning.
Right.
You've got what he was supposed to be the best quarterback prospect in a generation, and you're not giving him any run.
And it's interesting because down here, in Texas, there's some news that the Ewers is leaning towards or talking about coming back for, potentially for another year. He's weighing that versus going to the NFL. And so, if that happens, I don't know what that would mean for Arch. I guess the positive in them not playing him is they didn't burn his, red shirt or whatever. But I think a lot of people were surprised by that. Yeah, Texas. I mean, I think they we say this every year about them. They generally have the talent, and they up until they've been underperforming, and obviously, I think Sark's got them headed in the right direction. They may be a year away, but they certainly can. I don't think they'll get in, but I think they can maybe make it difficult for somebody else, maybe spoil somebody else's.
They need Washington to drop a game and then lose to Oregon. Oh, they need Washington to drop some random game, beat Oregon, and have everybody say, they're a one-loss team that's not that good.
Right.
And then either Michigan or Ohio State will drop out. I could see it. I just, watching them against in some of their games, they're like, oh, they're world beaters. And then you're like, are you going to lose this?
Right.
So I worry that they don't have the mental toughness. You look at mental toughness. Obviously, Michigan has it. Georgia has it after back-to-back. Does Alabama have it? I don't know, but Saban does, and Saban is scary enough where the Bama players will find it.
Now, make sure you don't suggest that Ohio State doesn't have it, because Ryan Day will come after you.
I think that they're starting to develop the toughness. I think top to bottom, they're probably more, at the top, they're definitely more talented than Michigan. They do recruit better than Michigan does. Michigan recruits tough kids. So I think Ryan Day's trying to build his team closer and closer to that, while still trying to be a high-flying offense.
Right.
So, I mean, I think they've been there enough where I know what they're going to do. And you look at how much of it, what kind of battle it was against Georgia last year. They're field goal away from winning that thing.
Yeah.
So Ohio State, I know what I can count on from them. Texas, what Texas are you gonna see the Texas that wants to destroy the world, or are you gonna see the Texas that gets humiliated by Oklahoma?
Right. And they lost their running back this past week, Jonathan Brooks. So that's obviously a big
Mm-hmm.
concern for them. Obviously, they've got some depth, but he was playing very well.
He was amazing.
Yeah. Let's shift over to the college football playoff rankings, and because it's different. So I'll run through the top 6 here. Same teams, different order. Ohio State sitting at number 1, followed by Georgia, Michigan at 3, Florida State at 4, then Washington, then Oregon, and then they have Texas at 7, Bama at 8, Ole Miss at 9. And again, this will be updated tomorrow, so this doesn't reflect Ole Miss losing this past week, and then Penn State at 10. Obviously, Penn State is they fired their OC. They just had a loss, so those two are probably not in the mix at 9 and 10 when the rankings come out, I believe, or maybe it's tonight, either tonight or tomorrow. But that was the most recent ones as of this show. So what are your thoughts on Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3?
Ohio State's not 1. Georgia's 1. They have the better. Missouri is a really good win, shockingly, but they are a really good team this year. They've dismantled the good teams. Anytime. Do you remember when they're like, "Oh, Kentucky could beat Georgia"?
Right. I was one of those that thought that.
And how'd that work? Well, Florida they have the moxie to do it. How did that work?
Yeah, not well.
Georgia doesn't care. They're like the Shaq of college football. Shaq never started playing until halfway through the season.
Right.
And okay, now I'll get in shape, and by playoffs, I'll care.
Ready to go.
And that's kind of how I feel Kirby Smart has Georgia, is that as the season goes on, as people doubt them, I think when the CFP did that, they just threw Kirby Smart a bone because he's going to have, oh, look, they doubt us again.
Right, disrespecting the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Carson Beck, they think you're awful. And he's going to put a chip on their shoulder. Am I okay with Ohio State at 2? Yeah, I am. 3, 4, 5 could go in. Well, 3 and 4. I think Florida State and Michigan are the obvious 3 and 4.
Right.
Washington has to play defense before I take them seriously. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Man, I watched that, the Ohio State Notre Dame game as most people did, and man, that's a tough place. They went on the road and won that, and I think to Ryan Day's credit, he was really able to take kind of, I think, not a significant or meant to be slight towards that team, and really turned it into a rallying team for a cry for his team, and good for him for doing that. And I think they're playing great right now. But Georgia's got to be number 1, and then really 2, 3, and 4 really doesn't matter where you're at right now, as long as you're kind of in that conversation, because you're going to be able to, if you're the better team, you're going to get those wins and get a more favorable matchup come playoff time, as long as you're in the conversation. But I do think they have the top 4 right anyway. With we both disagree with the order. I think it should be Georgia, but then Ohio State, Michigan, FSU, any order 2, 3, and 4, and then 5. I'm a little bit with you. Washington, I mean, they're undefeated, so they're there, but they're a little shaky. But I don't know. I don't feel strongly enough that I'd want Oregon there or Texas there. I do think Oregon is playing really well right now, and if they go head to head right now, I think Oregon wins, but they do have the 1 loss, and so there should be a penalty for that. So I'm okay with that top 5. I don't know that I agree with the order, but they got the teams right, in my opinion.
I agree. And it's pretty easy. You got 5 undefeated teams.
Right.
and probably what they think the next best team is lost to one of those teams. So I
Right.
mean,
Yep. I completely agree. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's look at the Heisman Trophy candidates and kind of who you think we can talk a little about who you think will get it and then maybe who you think deserves it.
okay.
And so I'll go through kind of the list you can add because this isn't. I mean, there are other names that are probably on here that are not on my list that people are talking about, but certainly you've got. And I'll run through some of the numbers here. But you got Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, Jaden Daniels from LSU. Marvin Harrison Jr. from OSU, Ohio State, and then Jordan Travis from Florida State. So there are probably others, and feel free to bring anybody else up that you want. Those are all quarterbacks with the exception of Marvin Harrison Jr. So as most people know that it seems like it's heavily weighted towards quarterbacks, sometimes running backs, and then you got to be a really special receiver, which Marvin Harrison Jr. is to be in that conversation. First off, is there a name that stands out as the obvious choice if you were picking? If so, who it is? And then I'd like to get your thoughts on that aside, regardless of who you think deserves it, who do you think the committee will give it to?
Who's the committee going to give it to? That's tough. Who do I think deserves it? Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
His last week, the guy put up 606 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he lost ground in the odds.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. LSU cannot run. I almost said LSD. It looks like the LSU defenders are on LSD when they're out there because I don't know what they're trying to tackle and who they're trying to guard. It's a nightmare. But you think Bo Nix at least has a semi-decent, I mean, it's not like world-beating, but it's a good defense.
Right.
Florida State has a good defense. Well, Caleb Williams has an atrocious defense. I'm shocked he's not still on there. Marvin Harrison isn't going to get taken seriously because he's not a quarterback, and the Heisman is now a quarterback's award. Michael Penix, he just kind of gets overlooked a little bit, but to me, Jaden Daniels has the most yards per attempt. He has the most touchdowns thrown. He's third in total yards, and every game he goes out, he knows that it's the offense against the world.
Right.
Because the defense is going to give him no help.
Right.
And he has 2 guys that are, well, one guy is the number one, Neighbors is number 1 in yards on the year, and Thomas is number 11. No one else is even close to having 2 people that high up there. So he is throwing for a ton of yards. And then you look at this last game, he completely changed the game on the ground. Bo Nix, who I think will win it, he's got an insane 29-2 turnover or touchdown to interception ratio, 5 rushing touchdowns. He is not the dual threat. Now, last year, I think he had 14. So last year, he showed more in the run than he has this year. But we're not going off of last year. We're going off of this year.
Correct.
So I think Jaden Daniels is the most dangerous of them. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so yeah, and looking at and listening to some of those numbers, and really those quarterbacks, with the exception of Jordan Travis, they're all over 3,000 yards passing. They're all pretty close in touchdowns thrown. At 30, as you said, for Daniels, 28 for Penix, 29 for Bo Nix. Only 2 interceptions. I agree with you. I think Bo Nix is going to win it, barring a collapse down the last few games. I think what to your point, probably what's hurting Daniels is they're sitting at 7-3, and really we know we know it's not supposed to be based on that, right? But it is to some degree, and obviously sometimes voters will stop watching teams if they think they're out of the picture anyway. If I were voting, I would go with Bo Nix. I saw him play against Texas Tech. I went to that game. I just think he's having an incredible season. Really, they all are. But I think what Bo Nix, and again, this is unfair because to your point, it's supposed to be only on this year. But the transition from him, I mean, they ran him out of Auburn, out of the SEC, and he's reinvented himself. And none of that should matter. Probably it does in my mind, and maybe that's the problem. But to set that 29-2 ratio, 184.7, rating, sitting at 9-1. He's my favorite that I think will win it. And if I were voting, that's who I would give it to.
And I think he has the top completion percentage in the country. It's 78%. So he's been very accurate. You want to know who this is me being me. Like, I'm the conspiracy theorist.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm always looking for that weird thing. Do not be surprised if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship, that Jalen Milroe gets his name thrown in.
Okay.
16 touchdowns through the air, 12 on the ground. He every week is starting to look a little bit better. He doesn't have the yards, but remember, he lost a start, and he had that rough, shaky. But you don't want to be the guy who's following up the man. And Bryce Young was the man.
You're correct.
It took some time to figure all this out. I don't think he's going to, go for the Final Five. What's that in New York, right?
In New York, yep.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it to New York, but I'd be willing to place money that Jalen Milroe starts next year in the top 5 favorites.
Well, if he what you said, they beat Georgia in that championship game, I think you're right. And boy, what a turnaround he's had within the season, because they were crucifying him early in the season, and he kept his head down, kept working, and he's gotten much better. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch for. And it is kind of shocking to not have an Alabama person mentioned, as a legitimate threat for this.
Yes.
So, all right. So let's get kind of to the meat of some of this stuff. Everything going on, all kinds of crazy coaching news, from Jimbo Fisher to Jim Harbaugh. We got Penn State OC being let go. The Mississippi State coach being let go. There's all kind of things happening. But you're up there in the Michigan area. Let's talk about what's the feel up there. What are the thoughts? What's going to happen? I saw that Jim Harbaugh said that he's going to talk when he gets his opportunity. So what's going on with all of with this? We know that he was suspended for the last 3 regular season games. But beyond that, what's going on?
So here's the thing that I think people forget about. In 2020 COVID year, they were like 2 wins and 5,000 losses. Like, it was a bad season. Harbaugh got his pay, his contract cut. Like, he got a 50% pay cut, if I remember right. That, like, his job was on the line. His legacy was on the line. Could I see him stealing some signs? Yeah, I could. Like, I think we all would be willing to do some stuff to save our jobs. At the same point, I don't know how well you guys know the University of Michigan down south, but University of Michigan sees themselves as the Ivy League of the Midwest. I'm a counselor. I work in school systems. I've gone to recruiting fairs, and I've gone up to U of M recruiters and said, "Hey, what are your 5 5 programs are you most proud of?" And they just look at me like, I can't answer that. We have over 50 top 5 programs in the nation. Like, you want me to pick? They're like, it's like picking the best looking girl at Miss America. Like, you can't do it. And there's just that kind of like almost that little bit of arrogance that we're super smart here. So you're telling me that an institution that has an ACT average of a 33 and SAT average of 14 something, that you're going to Venmo money to people and buy stuff in your own name if Jim Harbaugh is running this? I don't think he knew anything. But at the same point, it doesn't matter. The NCAA has it out for him, which we saw when he got the 3-game. Well, they offered him a 4-game suspension. Supposedly he accepted it. Then they pulled it because he wouldn't admit that he had lied. And so him and the NCAA are going at it. And again, conspiracy theory talk. Ryan Day can't beat him lately.
Right.
Ryan Day loses again. He's on the hot seat. James Franklin can't beat him. No one can beat him in the Big Ten right now. So why not take him out? From what I read, Michigan was never contacted. Like the Big Ten never asked for their side of the story. And supposedly the NCAA got in on a call with the Big Ten and like, hey, we got lots of evidence on this. But the Big Ten suspended him with no due process. Regardless of whether right, wrong, whether he did it or not. And they admitted, yeah, we don't think Harbaugh knew anything about it. He didn't do anything with it. But we're still going to suspend him.
Right.
Oh, the lawsuit. Harbaugh and U of M have lawyered up so heavily. The Big Ten and the NCAA are going to pay a huge settlement on this. And then if Michigan doesn't make the CFP, which loudmouths like Stephen A. Smith are saying they shouldn't, and Paul Feinbaum, they shouldn't make. No. I mean, Rutgers knew that Michigan had their sign, so they switched them. Michigan pummeled them 31-7. Michigan State knew that, we changed our signs 49-0. It should have been 56, but they got cheated out of a touchdown. Like, Michigan is good. They're knocking the snot out of people. It doesn't matter. You're a Texas guy, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to throw a baseball name at you. Remember Nolan Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
Nolan Ryan was my hero. Nolan Ryan's catcher used to tell the batters the sign. He's going to throw a fastball on the outside corner. He's going to throw his curveball now. He's going to come with the fastball on the inside. And they still couldn't hit it.
Right.
They knew it was coming. Like, even if you know it's coming, you have to be good enough to hit a Nolan Ryan fastball.
Right.
And so I think if Michigan doesn't make the CFP, every one of those kids on the Michigan football team, even if they lose the Big Ten, are going to sue. And a lot of people are going to make money off of this. What are your thoughts coming not from Big Ten land?
Right. Well, interesting, as I watched it, Deion Sanders, he came out and said, look, you could mail somebody the game plan, but you still have to be able to stop it, and to your point of how good Michigan is. Look, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so as a consequence, I automatically don't like Michigan, but I think this is kind of ridiculous because from what I've read and heard that it's really not all that uncommon. Maybe if the stories are true, the lengths that this guy went to is probably above and beyond, but you got to believe that in any given game that you got somebody watching the signal or trying to figure out, okay, that's they're running. So I don't think that one, that it's very isolated. And then two, it sounds like, it's not that big of a deal. Urban Meyer, got all these guys that are part of the game or were part of it that coached in it saying, this is ridiculous. This punishment is unjust. So I think it's probably like baseball where it happens and it's probably supposed to be an unwritten rule not to, but teams do it. Now, It may if what they're saying that this scout or this analyst did, going to those, games, whatever. But, I know down here, high school football and stuff, we would change signs and have multiple signs for the same play and then switch up who's the live signal or who the dummy signals are, And so I think part of it is you should be a little paranoid and you're doing everything you can to confuse your opponents anyway. So, look, I don't ever want Michigan to win it all, but I don't want them to be punished for something like this. I want them to, get beat on the field, and if they win it all, good for them. But I'm not really down with this. It seems like, they were saying that this was, came down from the Big Ten. It seemed really, really rushed. You heard these allegations, people talking, and all of a sudden they had a conference call. Michigan wasn't on it. Here's the suspension. And it seems like they would be open to liability because it doesn't appear, at least from the outside, that they've given due process and really investigated it.
Well, and then you even look at when it was handed out. It was handed out Friday night after the courts closed, basically. So, hey, we've been talking that we're going to do this for a couple weeks now. Now you can't do anything. Ha, we got you.
Right.
I mean, again, I think we all can see with NIL where the NCAA is dying. And should they die? Well, I mean, I'm sure you've coached some college athletes, haven't you, for football? Oh, yeah. I don't know what kind of experience you've had with the NCAA, but I used to work on the counseling side of it, and I have so many nightmare stories. I mean, I can share this one because it's not specific kid. I got a letter from the NCAA, an email, and they're like, honors chemistry is not accepted. And I'm like, what do you mean honors chemistry is not a core class? You've accepted academic chemistry and regular chemistry.
Right.
And they're like, well, honors isn't rigorous enough. I'm like, do you speak English? Because everybody knows honors is better than academic.
Right.
And they're like, well, we didn't know. And I'm like, I sent you a 100-page document outlining like what was taught at each level. Oh, yeah, we read that. It's good now. Like, you didn't read it. Like, right. But they just, when in doubt, not eligible, not eligible.
Deny.
And deny. And so do I think the NCAA should fall? Yeah, actually I do. I think they're antiquated. But this is like, hey, NIL, we can't ding people that way anymore. Let's ding Harbaugh for something like a cheeseburger and for doing what everybody else does.
So do you think, before we move on to Jimbo, where will Jim Harbaugh be coaching next season? Will he be in the NFL or will he be at Michigan?
I just read something linking him to Texas A&M.
Oh, my gosh.
Which I just thought was crazy. Supposedly, the NFL has said that if Harbaugh gets suspended, that the NFL will recognize that and honor that suspension. So I don't know if that's the case. I think Harbaugh wants to stay at Michigan. I think the NCAA wants him out. So I think it depends on how this goes. If Harbaugh gets slapped again and the NCAA wins, then I think he's gone to the NFL. And I think he'll just be done with college. So Michigan or college for me, or Michigan or NFL for me, if he can find someone in the NFL that wants him.
Okay, fair enough. I think, part of me thinks that he's got just a prickly enough personality that he would stay just to spite the NCAA or spite the Big Ten or the other coaches in it. But
100%, you're right on that.
So. All right, so let's move on to some other big news. Obviously, you mentioned Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher out as head coach of the Texas Aggies, going to cost the school roughly $77 million just to buy him out, not including buyouts for any assistants, not including what they're going to have to pay for the new coach that they're going to bring in. He was 45-25 at Texas A&M with 3 bowl wins, none of them, significant. And he's 128-48 overall with 8-2 in bowl games. Obviously, the one championship with Jameis Winston. Do you agree with this move, letting him go and then letting him go mid-season? And then 2, we'll get into who are the likely most likely successors to him. What are your thoughts on the firing, and then also the timing of the firing?
I thought the timing was really weird in that it seemed like they had already made their decision, and then he goes out and routes. And what was the score? 51-10 or something like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, like you say, oh, offense is horrible. Okay, well, he just dropped 50.
Right.
Like it's showing on an SEC team. Like how many teams out there can say they dropped 50 on an SEC team? That's not Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt will take them out of the equation,
Right.
but
Fair point.
I mean that's pretty good. I mean, I think what this is what our society is right now. If someone cries and complains, we cave. And I think the boosters basically said, we bought the best recruiting class in history, and this is what we're getting. We want him gone now, or we start pulling funding. And so I think they said, oh, okay, yep. We've sold our soul to you. We'll do what you want.
Right. I saw an article, and they had, when they hired him, they brought him in. They had a plaque made. I don't know if you saw that, and it was
Yep.
they didn't have the rest of the year put on there, but it was like to commemorate his up and coming national championship, kind of all for naught. Interesting when you say about the boosters complaining, because several years ago, right before he retired, or Mike Krzyzewski brought up, if my first couple of years at Duke, if it was the way it is now, back then I wouldn't have lasted. I would have been fired immediately. Now look, I never really thought that Jimbo Fisher was worth the contract when he got it. I think he's a good coach, but not great, not elite. He got the championship, with Jameis Winston. But the money they paid him was insane. But I'm with you. I think they had already made the decision. Probably should have let him go after the last loss.
Yep.
But I think the timing is, look, they want to get a new coach in as quickly as possible before the portal opens, because they run the risk of either losing their own players to the portal, or not being able to attract any, because no one's going to know who the coach is. So, I think that kind of bit them, because they went out and finally won big, and they pulled the trigger anyway. They should have pulled it, after one of those losses. I don't know that I disagree with the firing. You're getting paid, $80 million or whatever, and you are a subpar team. You have, world-class facilities. You got NIL money, to get the best athletes. You have the best athletes, and it hasn't translated, and it's not getting better. I think at one point he was a game better or a game worse than Kevin Sumlin, who they fired before they hired him. So the thing is, I think it's a very attractive job because of, one, you're in the SEC, so you're going to be able to recruit those players that want to play in the SEC, that want to, you've got really good facilities. You've obviously, everybody knows that they'll spend money in the NIL. So if you can get the right coach in there, I think it's a really good situation. What do you think? Is it a good job?
I was hoping you were going to ask me that, because everybody says it's a great job. And we're going to talk about who's going to take that job. And, we have a list of people. Can they pull so-and-so away from this school? I look at it as, is it really a good job? No one's Georgia and no one's Alabama. They're going to recruit the best. You're still fighting the LSUs. You're fighting Tennessee's, Tennessee and Florida are storied programs. LSU is a storied program, and they struggle at times. Now you're bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, two very storied programs. Like, how hard is it going to be to win in the SEC? Like, you're not going to. Texas A&M's, maybe once in a while we'll go to a conference final, but they're not going to conference finals. Not with those teams out there.
Right.
So I don't think it's that great of a job.
Okay. So in that case, one of the names I have on the list, because I didn't know where to start with, might be more attractive to this individual just because of where he is now. And that's Jeff Traylor from UTSA. I don't know how much you know about him. University of Texas San Antonio. He's 37-13 over 4 years there. He came from Texas high school, I think out in East Texas, won a bunch of championships. For him, that might be worth it because you're going from, where they are now, the American Conference, up to, to the SEC. So that might be very attractive to him. On the other hand, he is pretty beloved in the city where he is. Let me run through the list of names, and then you can add any names on there, or you can delete anything saying there's no way he's going. But this are the ones that kind of there's some buzz about. Lane Kiffin, who is 31-15 at Ole Miss. Mike Elko, who has ties to A&M. He's 15-8 at Duke. Jeff Traylor, as I mentioned. Dabo Sweeney, 167-43, 4 championship appearances, 2 titles, obviously at Clemson. And then the name Stephen A. Smith is touting, you knew it was coming, is Deion Sanders, 4-6. And so, any other names I've forgotten you think that deserve legitimate attention? And then anybody on this list that you would check off and say, there's no way, we don't even need to talk about them?
I want to let you take first shot at this one because I have a dark horse candidate that no one sees coming.
Okay.
But I'll tell you why I've seen this as a possibility for a year now. But you tell me your thoughts first, and then because I want to drop the spoil. I want to drop the mic on this.
I think, it doesn't seem to be all that popular. I mean, the name is on the list, but I think Lane Kiffin is the natural choice. I think that he's already in the SEC. He is one of a couple of these former assistants have now beaten Saban. He hasn't. I think that the difference between Ole Miss and A&M, I think at least right now, is the money that's available and those resources. Yeah. I think Lane, I used to hate him, and he sort of reinvented himself. And you watch him now, and boy, he is a master kind of manipulator and pokes the bear. And I think players love playing for him. I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. Mm-hmm. I think if you could put him with some of the players that they have, that recruiting class, surely some of those guys will go with him. To me, I think that's the most natural fit because I think he's dying for what he perceives as a chance or a better chance to go beat Saban. Those other names, like I think Deion, I don't think is a good fit. I think he could recruit. I mean, he's shown he can recruit, but already demoted his OC. They play zero defense there, in Colorado. And again, 4-6, it's already probably much better than expected. But to me, the natural fit is Lane Kiffin. I know some people are saying Elko because of ties, but he's only been at Duke, 2 years at 15-8. I don't know that he really has that experience, because you're looking at, by the time you pay the new guy, you're going to be close to $200 million, mm-hmm. in salaries and stuff. So they're probably, my thought would be they're going to want somebody that they have more confidence in. But I'm dying to hear your dark horse and your spoiler here.
Some of the thoughts you said, spot on. Deion can recruit, but can he coach at that level? Jeff Traylor is probably ready for a step up. But at the same point, you just dropped $75 million and bought the best recruiting class money could buy. Are you going to get excited about that name that's not proven? Mike Elko, I think, is a great choice because he has turned Duke around. And if it wasn't for, Riley Leonard? That was their quarterback. If it wasn't for him getting injured, their season would look very different right now. And they'd be probably at another 8-9 win season. The one that you put that I didn't think of that I loved, Dabo.
Yeah.
He's got the recruiting chops. He has the pedigree. He needs a fresh start desperately. That's interesting. But here is my crazy idea. Bobby Petrino.
Oh, okay. So
They
he's already
hired
there.
him. They hired him to be their offensive
Yeah.
coordinator. He has won a lot of places that he has been. He's on staff. Is that a natural slide him up? I don't think
Ooh,
it'll happen, but when they hired him and I knew Jimbo was already on the hot seat,
right.
why would you hire someone of that pedigree to be one step away from your job? Like you're asking to get canned at that point.
Right. Well, down there when Jimbo was not for this move, because when they
Mhm.
would ask him, it was made clear that he was brought in to be the signal caller, and when they initially would ask Jimbo, he was very evasive about, yes, I'm going to let him call. And finally, I guess he got told or whatever, and finally said, yes, he was brought in to call the plays. But so there may be something to that. And maybe Jimbo saw it coming, because it did not seem like it was a welcome addition.
Mhm.
And maybe Julius Caesar saw Brutus coming and knew
Mhm.
that was the end. But wow, I didn't even consider that. That is a dark horse, and what a boy! You want to talk about getting people talking conspiracy theories, and
Mhm.
even people who didn't like Jimbo are probably going to, man, that's a cold-hearted, backstabbing move, and
Yeah.
maybe it was. That's interesting. I did not consider that at all,
So
and
that's just my
it does make sense.
crazy.
So interesting. Well, we will see. Okay, yeah, I'm not. I cannot be sold on the Deion Sanders thing. I mean, I like what he's done. I like it that
Mhm.
he's done, and I love his message. And I follow him on social media. He's very inspirational, um, and what he's done, it has turned it around from a 1 win to 4. But I mean, I would like to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe a year away. But what do I know? I mean, he's leveraged, his into tons of money, and he at least knows what he's doing on the business side, and so we'll see.
And I think if you're Texas A&M, you can't grab just a good coach and win. You have to grab an icon to really draw some of the gravitas away from Georgia and Alabama. Like you've got to get in. Dion and I would say Dabo of that list are the only two that give them that it factor. But you got to play
Well,
defense in the SEC.
yeah, and if you don't get it right, if you find yourself a couple years down the road where this new coach has the exact same record as Kevin Sumlin and the exact same record as Jimbo Fisher, boy, that place is going to come unglued,
Yep.
because they're spending the money and they're renovating and they're upgrading facilities and NIL, and they better get this right for sure.
Yes.
So, all right, so let's move on. We'll go to fourth down here. I thought we would look at. I don't know if I created one for this, but oh yeah, here we go. So the upcoming games of the week. Is there anything? I have one that I'm pretty interested in. There's really not a ton of high drama, intrigue. There's not Michigan, Ohio State,
Yep.
that kind of thing. But what is your one game if you got told you can watch one game this weekend and you got housework the rest of the weekend? What game are you picking?
Washington, Oregon State.
Okay,
I
Washington.
I think this is Washington is on a must win every game. It's one of the few. I mean, if you looked at ranked games, um, you have Washington, Oregon State, Kansas, which is cool in all. You have Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia's going to stop. They're going
Oh
to
yeah,
dog walk Tennessee. So I'm not even considering that as a good game. Like, Alabama, Chattanooga, boring. Miss Louisiana Monroe, that's embarrassing. Oh,
yeah,
I missed Utah, Arizona. That might be like my second game because where in the world did Arizona come from?
yeah. Unbelievable. I'm very surprised by how well they've played, and what they've been able to do.
So, I mean, if I hated myself, I'd watch Illinois, Iowa,
Gosh.
but I don't hate myself that much. So I want to, and I want to see, Clemson has struggled so much on offense this year, and DJ Ungalele was run out of there, and
Yep.
now he's putting together a decent season. So I would really like to see how he does in this. This is a marquee matchup. This is a make or break for Oregon State at 8-2. So if they can pull this off, go 9-2 with a big win over Washington, now you're definitely talking big time bowl here. Not, I mean, they're not going to sniff the college playoffs, but they're talking big time bowl here. What about you? What's yours?
All right, so mine is not quite as high profile, but you kind of alluded to it when you mentioned Clemson. I'm looking at Clemson versus North Carolina, and really, Clemson has not been very consistent, not been very good, but they had, obviously the big win over Notre Dame, and Dabo came out after that game pretty fired up. If you're buying stock, you better buy it now. Obviously, North Carolina is sitting pretty at, I believe they're 8-2. So I just think this is a game where Clemson has a chance to, I think, make a statement, knock off a really good team, kind of show that, kind of as Mark Twain said, the rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. We talked about Dabo, you talked about him needing a fresh start, so I think that this has all the markings of, him coming out and a chip on his shoulder, something to prove, to show that he can still do it. He didn't make the wrong decision, with the quarterback, and that they're still a force to be reckoned with. They're sitting at 6-4, so a win, puts them at 7-4, knocking off an 8-2 team. So I think that this just has a lot of intrigue, mainly because I want to see, now that Clemson showed some spark, can they continue with that? I think college football is better when they're good.
Yep.
Clemson, I think 6.5 point favorites. So that's kind of the game I think I'd watch if I were only down to one game, which I sure as heck better not be, but that's the one I think I'd want to watch.
I think that's a good call. You look at North Carolina sitting at 24th at 8-2, with a lot of 7-3 teams that are ranked higher. That's and that ranking really shows what they think about North Carolina. And I've thought that North Carolina was overhyped all season.
Right.
So this is huge. Like, Clemson wins this, all of a sudden they're looking at probably going 8-4 on the season, win a bowl game, 9-4. Most coaches kill for that.
Yes, agreed.
They lose this game and a 5-loss season, he's on the hot seat next year.
Yeah, and he may see the writing on the wall, and he may take off to Aggie land. Who knows? So, hey, let me ask you this. We talked about this before the show, and I totally slipped my mind to bring it up. So it's not a smooth transition by any means. I meant to bring it up because they entered the top 25, and then you were talking about the rule not letting them go to a bowl game. But let's talk about James Madison. Sorry for forgetting about it, but what a great story. What a great topic. And then, man, it brings up, to your point again, another questionable rule from the NCAA. You mentioned that they're a little bit antiquated. Talk a little bit about what that rule states, and boy, what a great story from James Madison, going undefeated, entering in. I think they are number
20. Are they 25? No, they're not 25.
18 in the AP 18. And 21 in the coaches poll.
Okay,
is what I see.
That's so because they came from the FCS, there's a ban on them from being able to take part in conference championships or in the CFP. I don't know, I read some confusing stuff and contradicting stuff that said that they can go to a bowl game and that they can't go to a bowl game. Nothing that is like set, like this conference sends this one, but they could maybe get an at-large bid. But to me, the dumbest thing in the world, if you beat teams in front of you, and the Sun Belt's a pretty decent lower level. You look at those teams. App State gives people trouble. Troy gives people trouble. Georgia Southern has given people trouble. There's a lot of really good teams in there, and they're waltzing through it, and they can't do a conference championship because of a technicality. I don't know. I get a rule's a rule, but I guess there's also a rule in Maine that you can't pick up seaweed off of the ocean. Why is that a rule?
Right.
In Missouri, you can't wrestle a bear. Well, I'm
that's
sorry. If you're dumb enough to wrestle a bear, wrestle the bear. You'll learn. You don't need a law on that. You'll learn. Like, these are dumb laws that don't need to be there.
Now, is this a rule that has to do with when you come from the FCS that you got? Does it have anything to do with getting extra scholarships or anything like that? And so that's why they don't let you go, or
That's a good question. I did not.
And that may not be.
Look up enough about the rule other than just to think it was dumb.
Okay. And I may be wrong on that, but I want to say there's something, there was some reason, but I can't remember what it is. But I hate to see these kids kind of punished. They're having such a great year.
Mm-hmm. Let's go see if I can quickly look it up.
Okay.
They have to wait 2 years to be bowl eligible. I read that they filed an appeal. So, according to what I'm reading, they have to participate in orientation sessions, complete compliance reviews. Basically, it's so that way they can provide adequate time to demonstrate they have met the necessary requirements to become an FBS member and to adjust to the increased requirements for student athlete support at the FBS level. And that was from NCAA president to the Virginia officials.
Okay, well that's just silly. Then I agree with you. Let them play. Settle it on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So we'll wrap this up. Episode 1 of Mental Dimes College Football rebranded podcast, and we are going to go to the little coaches challenge, and we're just talking a little bit about. All right, prognosticating is what we're talking about. Who is going to be not in the college playoffs, but who's going to be in the championship game, and then who's going to win it?
Georgia's winning it all. And who cares? Because it's going to be a butt whooping like it was last year. I think the winner of Michigan, Ohio State, as long as Michigan is eligible.
Fair.
If Michigan beats Ohio State and then gets disqualified, then I think that changes things. But I think Georgia will be number 1. Michigan or Ohio State will end up being 2. Florida State will be 3. And then 4, that's going to be up in the air. So I think it's going to be I'm going to hate myself in the morning. I'm going to go Georgia, Ohio State.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm going to join you with some self-loathing because I'm going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to say Georgia and Michigan.
Okay.
And, I'm going to say Georgia wins it all. Look, you brought up earlier that Michigan really they don't have a true quality win yet, but I think they're going to get it. And again, it's so hard in the eyeball test. I don't watch them as much as you do, but what I've seen is they are just destroying people. And I think that the ability to run the ball like they do, and until Ohio State shows that they can beat them, I think it's in everybody's mind whether they'll admit it or not. And I think that gives Michigan an edge. And I think right now, I mean, again, assuming that they're allowed to play for it, but I think Michigan now has, it's us against the world.
Yep.
They're calling us cheaters, and we're going to go out and punish people, and we're going to make a point. And so I think they're going to get there.
The only thing that worries me about Michigan is Penn State showed that the Michigan tackles are not up to the rest of the team. That is the definite weak spot on this team. And Ohio State and Georgia will bring the athletes. Like I worry if Michigan has to play Florida State, can they, wait, why am I blanking? Not Jordan Travis. Florida State's really good end. Why am I blanking on his name?
I don't know.
He's Jared Verse. Jared Verse. Jared Verse is just going to walk all over the tackles. Michigan had to go. I mean, McCarthy threw 9 passes all game, and most of them were in the first quarter. Like Michigan could not protect him and has struggled all year to protect him. McCarthy has had to move around in the pocket a lot more. So I worry about those tackles. That's the only reason that I wonder if Ohio State can get them.
Okay. Well, luckily we still got some time to figure all this out and see where the chips may, and I'll be interested to see who's at that number 4 spot if Oregon gets there or not. Hey, appreciate having you back. Hopefully we can do this every week or so. And then I know we've talked about doing some women's college basketball as well. So please, if you are listening or watching this podcast, look for the updates. Follow us on Twitter at Tuck_coach for Coach Tuck, at NG Triplet. We've got at Mental Dimes and at Mental Dimes CFB. Interact with us. Be looking out for our up and coming podcast on hopefully a variety of things. We're partnering with someone that has the NFL Roundup, Red Zone Roundup, and we post that through all our Mental Dimes platforms. So check that out as well, and let us know what you think. And until next time, Coach, we'll see you.
All right, see ya.